Today, we're going to peek under the hood of one of the world's most spoken languages, and I think you'll be surprised to find that its logic, its entire foundation, is built on something completely different from what you're probably used to.
Okay, get this. What if a language had no plurals? Like you couldn't say dogs, cats, or ideas. The word for one of something was the exact same as the word for 100. How would you even keep track? And then, what if that same language had no past, present, or future tenses? No walked, walking, or will walk? How would you talk about time? I mean, it sounds kind of impossible, right?
Well, that's Mandarin Chinese for you. And before you think it's just total chaos, it's not. It just follows a completely different and honestly a pretty fascinating set of rules.
So, first, let's look at the pieces that might seem, well, missing if you're coming from a language like English.
So in English, right, we just slap an S on the end to make something plural. Book becomes books. Simple. But in Mandarin, the noun itself never, ever changes. The word for book, shu, stays the same whether it's one book or a whole library. So, how do you know how many there are? Well, it all comes down to context.
Which, of course, brings up the obvious question. If you can't make a noun plural, how on earth do you count anything? How do you ask for 2 coffees and not just coffee?
The answer is actually pretty elegant. Mandarin uses something called measure words. You can think of them like specific containers for numbers. Instead of changing the noun, you just put this special word right between the number and the object.
Here's a perfect example. To say one person, you say 一个人. That little character in the middle, 个, that's the measure word. It's the most common one, and it's what connects the number 1 to the noun person. See? You're not changing the noun at all. You're just adding a word to specify its quantity.
Okay, so after all that talk about measure words and no plurals, you might be thinking Mandarin grammar is from another planet. But let's look at the basic blueprint, because something here is going to feel very, very familiar.
And here it is. The really good news for English speakers is that the fundamental sentence structure is identical. Subject, verb, object. Seriously, this is a huge leg up when you're just starting out. Just look at the sentence, I eat an apple. In Mandarin, it's 我吃苹果. It's a direct one-to-one translation. Subject, 我, I. Verb, 吃, eat. Object, 苹果, apple. It's that simple and logical. For a basic statement, you don't need to rearrange a thing. Okay, now for the feature that Mandarin is probably most famous for. And yeah, maybe the most intimidating for new learners. We're talking about tones. It's not just about what you say, it is absolutely about how you say it.
You see, Mandarin is a tonal language. That means the pitch of your voice completely changes a word's meaning. Let's take the syllable ma. If you say it with a high, flat tone, ma, it means mother. If your voice rises, ma, it means hemp. A falling then rising tone, ma, means horse. And a sharp falling tone, ma, means to scold. That's 4 completely different words from the exact same sound just by changing its music. Now you're probably thinking, how does anyone speak that fluidly? And yeah, it can be tricky. But the language has this super clever built-in rule to make it easier, called tone sandhi. These are basically automatic rules that change certain tones to make them flow more smoothly together in a sentence. The classic example that everyone learns is the word for hello, ni hao. Now, individually, both ni and hao are third tones, that dipping, fall and rise sound. But saying 2 of those in a row is really clunky. So the rule just kicks in automatically. The first word changes to a rising second tone, so it sounds more like ni hao. It's a natural little tweak that makes the language feel more musical and just easier to say.
So we've seen how the language works, with all its unique little pieces. But now we get to the really interesting part. Why does it work this way? Why leave out things that seem so basic to us, like plurals and tenses, and instead focus so much on context and politeness? Well, the answer goes a lot deeper than grammar.
It turns out these rules aren't just random grammar. Nope. They're a direct reflection of thousands of years of Chinese philosophy, especially Confucianism and Taoism. The core values of the culture are baked right into the very structure of the language itself.
Let's start with Confucianism. At its core, it's all about respect, social hierarchy, and understanding your relationship to other people. In Mandarin, this isn't just some philosophical idea. It's a grammatical requirement.
For example, in English, we just have one word, you. But in Mandarin, there are two. You use the standard ni with your friends or people your own age, but when you're speaking to an elder, a teacher, or a superior, you have to switch to the formal, more respectful nin. The language itself forces you to acknowledge the social hierarchy in every conversation.
And this idea of respect goes even further. It's really common to address people by their title instead of their name. You wouldn't say, "Hello, Mr. Chen," to your teacher. You'd say, "Hello, teacher, Lao Shi." In that context, the title basically is their name. Okay, so the other huge influence here is Taoism. And if you think of Confucianism as creating social order, you can think of Taoism as creating social harmony. It's all about balance and avoiding direct conflict, which, as you can imagine, has a massive impact on how people communicate.
And this is exactly why politeness is so deeply woven into the language. Using a word like qing for please isn't just about being nice. It's actually a linguistic tool for maintaining that Taoist ideal of harmony. It softens a request, turning a potential order into a gentle suggestion, and it keeps the social balance.
So when we put all these pieces together, what's the big takeaway from all this? What does it all mean? The bottom line is, a language is never just a collection of words and grammar rules. It's a lens for viewing the world. The structure of Mandarin, shaped by these deep philosophical roots, offers a completely different way of seeing things. That focus on context is why things like verb tenses or mandatory plurals aren't as critical. The situation, the relationships, the flow of the conversation, that tells you everything you need to know. It's a view built on relationships, harmony, and respect. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If the rules of Mandarin reveal so much about its culture's values, what about your own native tongue? What hidden philosophies and priorities are encoded in the very way you speak every single day?